This first segment, called psychology, is the absolute most important and is the basic building block, cornerstone of Entrypoint Academy. The psychology segment introduces you to alternative perception of reality in the 21st century that will lead to the acceleration of all other segments of Entrypoint Academy, and most importantly, by applying an alternative model of reality described in this segment, you will be on your way to achieving your ideal goal. Tired of the constant stream of thoughts and emotions that keep you from achieving your goals? Discover Entrypoint philosophy and learn to live in the flow. Gain peace of mind, improve your relationships, and increase your success. Learn more in our 5-minute segment and start transforming your life today. The most common pattern of functioning in today's reality is as follows. My consciousness, soul, self is inside this physical shell. We sense the world around us through our senses. So eyes as to cameras, ears as to microphones, we perceive all this and then make decisions through thoughts and feelings, how we behave and make decisions in reality. In this model, we set a goal and then try to move towards that goal with our decisions. Gradually, we find that in this model, many of us have a variety of strategies. Religion is an example of such strategy. Religion provides an explanation for why we are here and how to live. To religious strategies, we can also add atheism, scientific explanations, and of course, a whole variety of different mixes of religion, atheism, and various enhancements and techniques that each individual adapts to their own knowledge and ability. Although these strategies are quite clear at the first glance, although we all try at any given moment to make decisions that move us closer to our goal, most of us fail to do so and subsequently fall into negative mental states that spill over into other areas of our life. This is why the first segment of psychology is the most important, as it presents an alternative way of perceiving reality through experience, and from my experience leads to far greater productivity, efficiency, and ultimately far greater happiness and well-being in life. The hardest part about applying this model is that at the first glance, it seems to go completely against our intuition, but it's the same example as the rotation of Earth around the Sun. Even though we know that Earth revolves around the Sun, emotionally we live in a reality that at the first glance makes it seem like we live on a flat Earth around which the Sun flies around. That's why it took many hundreds of thousands of years for people to realize that although it doesn't seem to be like that, Earth orbits around the Sun. Just as Einstein had to come along and look at reality through the lens of relative flow of time, that time can pass differently within different places in our reality. A concept absolutely unimaginable to most Homo sapiens throughout the history of mankind. Moreover, we are pre-programmed by evolution to function in the pack and hunt mode that has operated here for millions of years. Part of this reprogramming is called cognitive distortion. It means we have a whole series of filters evolutionary programmed into our brains, and we are not even aware of these cognitive biases. It's just like these glasses. If I had these glasses firmly fixed on my eyes from birth, I would have no idea that my perception of reality is altered. And there have already been many filters like this discovered. And it is all of these apparent truths, pre-programmed filters, and other aspects of our reality we are not even aware of, unfortunately distort our perception of reality and therefore unconsciously affect our own decision. Let's compare the decision-making process in the standard model of perception to chess. Imagine that every situation in your life is a chess position. So how does a chess player make a decision? He sees a position, and in each position, 80% of the moves make no sense. The moves that make sense are between 3 or 4 moves in each position. And then you have to see each move in your head and then evaluate how the position changes and whether it's better or worse for you than the current position. Just like in life, you have 99% meaningless moves, like jumping out the window, break furniture, etc. Just a few moves though make sense, and you have to be able to imagine what the consequences of your life move will be. In this discipline, most of us are pretty bad The reason is that although every situation seems obvious to us and has just a few things you can do, and it's pretty clear how each one will turn out, in most cases it's more of a cognitive bias that we tend to simplify things and mainly in a direction that plays into what we expect, even though it may in fact be quite different. For it is not in human power to see all the implications of all the causes. That is, if I perceive three main causes of a phenomenon, first, I never know if I can actually see all the causes. And secondly, every cause is actually a consequence of a set of other causes. This becomes so inflated geometrically. It's actually quite silly to think that I can plan my life. Moreover, when you add to this your long-term goal, a quite fundamental paradox arises. In today's turbulent world, it's actually impossible to plan a path that leads to a specific goal. Moreover, the question is whether the goal you have identified with is in fact your ideal goal. I have a favorite example. A friend of mine was telling me that she wanted to take her family on a week vacation in Thailand, but that it wasn't coming true. I asked how she knew that a holiday in Thailand was actually the right vacation. What if, in reality, her ideal vacation is a month in the Maldives? That, for example, in the constellation of her life, a holiday in Maldives for a month is much more easily achievable, but it will never happen because the lady is constantly trying to the best of her ability, but woefully limited imagination, to channel all reality into a holiday to Thailand, which in reality is not possible, and all this time blocking a far better vacation. It's exactly the same as a chess player announcing at the start of a game that he wants to checkmate his opponent on the right side of the board. Even a computer can do that because no one knows how the game will turn out. But every chess player knows that if he plays the correct ideal move at any given moment, there will be the most ideal checkmate he can make out of the game. This is the same way one must approach making decisions in life when approaching reality. The first model of perceiving reality is seemingly quite logical, like the sun orbiting the earth, but is unrealistic and leads to psychological problems that play out in all areas of life. The entry-point model of reality perception comes with a different concept. It's a concept of how to achieve your optimal goal without any given moment knowing what the final goal is. It's a concept where every given step will bring you closer to your ideal goal. This approximation leads to you starting to optimize your life. But more importantly, you get the inner well-being because you won't have to stress yourself out. And you'll see how this approach described in the psychology section positively translates into other segments. In the following section, we will discuss the entry point concept in more detail. Dear friends, welcome to the first episode of Entrypoint Academia. As you have already seen from the introductory videos, these segments build on each other. You can skip them, but they follow in order of importance. And the most important segment, number one, which I call psychology. Psychology can mean a variety of things to a variety of people. So let me define what I mean by psychology. I mean the state of mind, the state of how we feel in life. This is the most important thing because we can be smarter, more beautiful, have more happiness in life. But if we are not happy inside, our whole life can be completely useless. I'm sure we've all experienced what it's like. We all know the reports of very successful people, millionaires, people who have that kind of life who just commit suicide because they are unhappy. So the basis of everything is to be happy inside. That's why I've called the segment psychology, and I think it was good to clarify at the outset certain terms that I'm going to use in this segment, so that when I use them, you know exactly what I'm trying to say. One of these terms would be the term organism. When I refer to us as an organism, I'm referring to an organism as a living unit. That is why I will use the term organism many times. Because the things that I will be describing will be things that I will need you to look at in a new way. It's one thing if I talk about the human body as our body, and it is another thing if I talk about the body as an organism, because that gives it a much more insight and flavor on how this body actually works. At the same time, when I talk about the human organism, I take it that within the word organism, I don't just mean the human body, but I also mean that part of this organism that's called our mind. Here we have somewhere our thoughts that we perceive. So that is also part of our organism. And at the same time, apart from the thoughts, we also have emotions, and our emotions are also part of our organism. Thoughts and feelings and the physical body, that all is under the term organism. Another term I will use often is the word reality. By reality, I mean everything around us that the organism moves in. So by the word reality, I mean what you see immediately around you. At the same time, what you see immediately around you resides on a planet globe. And globe is part of something called solar system, where this planet orbits the sun. And at the same time, you perceive that this sun is also part of a galaxy, which is a group of stars. And it's a galaxy located, we call a universe, and I call it reality. Another very important concept or phenomenon that I want to describe is consciousness, which can be described in a number of terms. These terms include consciousness, being, perception of experience, self. When I speak, I feel like I'm saying something and I'm aware of what's going on. This experience is not just an intellectual debate, but an example of what can be experienced firsthand. This awareness is what perceives my voice and my image and is commonly referred to as a soul or being. Now that we have clarified these terms, we can recognize that psychology and the good state of inner psychology are the basis of existence and being in our present reality. In this reality, we find ourselves as an organism trying to navigate and survive while feeling good and living with a smile on our face. This reality can be imagined in terms of the movie Matrix, and we can see ourselves as a biological machine with cameras, microphones, sensors and other inputs that we collect and process in the brain. Our brain displays these stimuli on a simplified monitor in our head and allows us to control our hands, our feet, our body, thoughts. We make decisions based on these inputs, much like a game of chess, where we decide which direction to move and what decisions to make in our daily lives. These decisions ultimately determine our happiness and well-being and make us an avatar or character in the game of life. Our goal is to navigate in reality and make choices that allow us to feel well and live a fulfilled life. This game has many different aspects, and one of which is our personal relationship to certain elements of reality. Part of this aspect is the attachment we have to these elements. With this organism or unit, we have another tool called memory. We collect experiences and store them in memory, which helps us make decisions in the present moment. In addition, we have another tool called creativity or visualization. We can imagine the future and different variations of our behavior, evaluate them as positive or negative, determine whether they put us into beneficial situations or worse situations, just like a chess game. In addition to the task of managing our unit in real time, we must also plan for the future based on the information stored in our memory. We need to set long-term goals such as having a child and raise the child or plan for retirement. This is a simplistic view of how most people live their lives. We use our memory, sensors and imagination as the helmsman of our own reality to steer ourselves towards a particular life goal. Although this model seems to work for many, some people experience unhappiness, sadness, anxiety, fear, and even contemplate suicide. Psychology of these individuals is challenged, preventing them from living life to the fullest and reaching their ideal goal. That's why I created Entrypoint Academy, that offers an alternative approach to working with our avatar in reality so that we can enjoy life with a smile on our face instead of anxiety and stress. Let's now describe the reality from the perspective of the game. While most of what I'm about to tell you may not be groundbreaking or new to you, I want us to tune into the same wave of seeing reality from a classical perspective. That way we can move seamlessly into the alternative model, which will help you try it out for yourself. One aspect of reality is that in order to live, we must nourish and protect our bodies. We have to buy clothes, provide shelter, and in short, we need money. Think of money as a symbol that allows us to draw energy from reality so that we can move and function. People used to have to hunt for food to get energy, but today by working and making money. Energy is exchanged for money to buy the things we need. Those who have more energy, more money, have more things, while those who have less energy, less money, have less things. So they don't have as much stuff. Well, this way of life involves acquiring energy, just like in the past, when it was difficult to hunt animals, which can be compared to money. There was a time where it was hard to hunt animals. When I imagine myself with a family in the Stone Age, children to feed and being weeks and months without being able to hunt, catch any animals, I would find the situation terribly stressful. It can be extremely stressful as the insane cost of living today. In addition to these aspects of reality, people ask other questions such as, why am I here? Why is the reality shaped the way it is? The only explanation for these phenomena is something we call religion. Religion is a kind of manual explanation of what reality is. Another set of manual is what you can call a scientific approach. Another set of explanations is our own experience. That is, I don't even have to believe in a religion or science, and I can survive in reality based on my experience alone. There is also the need to move around in the world within family grouping where there are personal relationships and love between members. At the same time, the family lives in a cluster called village or a town that's part of a state. There are hundreds of states on this planet, and there are organisms living in each of them. They speak different language, have different habits, and have instincts encoded in them that we cannot control. We fear the unknown and sometimes kill ourselves senselessly instead of uniting and working together. Well, in this reality, we realize that at the first level, there are different states, countries, people, and groups of people. But on closer examination of each individual, we find that the human body is not just an individual organism, but rather a cooperation group of billions of cells. Just like a country with 10 million citizens and its leaders, such as the Prime Minister and the President. For example, the cell located in your foot doesn't know what's going on in the rest of the body, but it trusts the body to act on its behalf. And it's better for the cell than to live in the reality alone. Looking deeper, we realize that every body and every organism is made of billions of cells. And every cell is made out of billions of molecules, and every molecule is made up of billions of atoms. Each atom is made up of subatomic particles, and each particle is made out of energy, which forms what we call a quantum field. And these quantum fields are intertwined. These fields are creating a universe that consists of an unimaginable number of galaxies, each containing an enormous number of stars. And our Earth has been here for 4 billion years. And once upon a time, the organisms we call plants evolved from the sea. These plants changed the atmosphere so that fish could evolve into mammals. And eventually, the species Homo sapiens, which has existed for about 250,000 years, is here. Agriculture was invented 10,000 years ago, allowing humans to settle down. Excess food led to population growth, which in turn led to the development of tools and technology. Today we are in a century where our bodies are not evolutionarily prepared for the rapidly changing environment. We have come out of the 20th century when we were able to improve our tools and better control this slow reality. Today it's very different and everything is connected. We are trying to keep up with it. The most important thing today is to learn to adapt and learn quickly new things. To do that, I have to be able to register these changes, and I use my senses to do that. What I have described is actually the most common model of how we perceive reality. This model obviously works. There are more people certainly that have a better standard of living today than the standard of living hundreds and thousands of years ago. So this model has worked for a whole period of time, but it seems a lot of people are not mentally happy. Materially, financially, they feel stressed, and overall, a lot of people are living anxious and unhappy. So I would like to offer an alternative Entrypoint worldview in the following section. This view is based on the Entrypoint philosophy, but this view, since it's part of all of our existence, of course, is wrapped up differently in all religions, and therefore some of you may argue that it's nothing new. I understand that. I have to tell you that although I have studied all religions and for some I've practiced them for some time, It's only Entrypoint philosophy that has changed my perspective and approach to reality and to life. I'm sure Entrypoint philosophy will help you live a peaceful and abundant life. A life that will surely be more fulfilling than in the first model. In the first model, I describe how we perceive reality with our senses. I mean, you could compare it to the being in a cabin, looking out of the windows to see what reality is like outside. But that's how reality is not perceived. Actually, the photons hit receptors in my eyes. Those receptors send electrical signal to my brain, and my brain uses those signals to render reality in 3D inside my mind. So I'm not actually inside my head looking through cameras or windows, in fact, outside around me, but it's in fact rendered inside my mind, inside my consciousness. So what I see out there is actually happening in my head. Further, it is scientifically proven that the photons we detect are a very small slice of light waves, so that there's far more information in reality that we can perceive with our senses. What's worse, our brain filters all the extra information it receives from reality and only lets into our consciousness what it deems appropriate. For example, I have no idea what my hormone levels are at the moment. The brain doesn't tell me and regulates everything itself. In the same way, the functioning of the whole body is controlled by the brain, and it doesn't ask me anything and it doesn't tell me anything. Aside from the fact that I am therefore at the mercy of my brain, what it's going to display in my consciousness. Another aspect is the thoughts. Although at the first model we feel that those are our thoughts, they are not our thoughts. They are, again, thoughts that the brain itself creates, and it shows them in our consciousness. None of you know what your third, alone seventh thought will be. It's absolutely crucial to realize that the thoughts that are going through your head are not your thoughts that you created, but they are thoughts that are made by your brain. Thoughts are like a feed on TikTok or Instagram. These networks send you different posts and monitor which ones catch your eye, and then those type of posts are displayed to you. In the same way, your brain shows you different thoughts, and according to your conscious attention, it monitors what you are most interested in and then sends that information to you. By taking all the thoughts that appear in your consciousness as if they are your thoughts, then of course those thoughts are very much interesting for you. In the same way, things and people that have a label that they are your things or your family, those things and those people are interesting to you than those things and people that don't have the label of being close to you. Hand in hand with the thoughts go emotions. Emotions, of course, you have no control over, and emotions your brain sends back into your consciousness, and sometimes it supports those emotions with thoughts that you have. These facts, which are seemingly invisible, are the basis of the Entrypoint model of perceiving reality. That is, I see only what my brain is in my consciousness. Only the brain creates thoughts, and I only perceive these thoughts. Emotions are created by my brain as a basis for the visuals and thoughts it lets me see in my consciousness. Before we move on, you really have to try this out for yourself and see through the illusion that you would control something, see something, think something, feel something. You are just in the toe of your brain, and all you're really doing is perceiving all of this. In the first model, however, you are identified with all of this. I dare say your consciousness is enslaved. And because most people around you live the same way, it's very tricky to abandon the first model. So we have to realize that everything our senses display in our consciousness, that all of our thoughts and feelings, that all of this is just our brain dumping into our mind in order to manipulate us or manipulating us to pay attention to what it wants us to pay attention to. So the moment we realize that none of this is ours, but it is something foreign, that it's manipulating us, we logically lose interest. The more we lose interest in our senses, thoughts, and emotions, the more the brain loses the motivation to show us these things, to manipulate us. But how do we go on? How do I make decisions if I can't trust the information in my conscious mind? And here comes the second step. The first step is to abandon the model 1. There is no point in planning anything at all if I know that reality is so complex that I can't trace all the causes of all the effects. When I know that everything that I know or think is just a manipulation of my brain. So the second step is, how am I going to live? How do I perceive reality? How do I feel inside? How do I live in reality when I have nothing to fall back on? The only thing I have to fall back on is that I know 100% my consciousness perceived stimuli, thoughts and emotions. Nothing more, nothing less. And here we return to the chess analogy. How can I decide what move to make if I don't know what checkmate I am aiming for at any given moment? At any given moment, I just have to make the correct move. And the chain of correct moves leads to the optimal checkmate. What is the way to make the correct moves in reality leading to the optimal checkmate? To my optimal goal without knowing what the goal is? The answer is, you have to be in flow. In flow, you have an empty mind. The moment you have an empty mind, you are perceiving everything. You get into a state where instead of a plethora of different thoughts and emotions that only are distracting you, you suddenly start to have thoughts and behavior that you don't consciously understand at the moment, but you will see that these behaviors and thoughts will lead to your ideal goal. I will now describe how this will affect you from a psychological perspective from my own experience. You will absolutely calm down. Just imagine how many times your thoughts and emotions make you feel bad. By keeping your head clear, you'll start to see a whole different context that you would normally not see. You'll start to discover solutions to problems that you've always had in front of you but didn't see them. You will start to find solutions that are ridiculously trivial, and they will start appearing in your life. They will be much more effective in moving forward in your life than if you are trying to plan anything. Entrypoint philosophy will give you psychological well-being that will incredibly manifest in your relationship with your health. Remember, stress depletes the body the most. Applying Entrypoint philosophy will help you acquire new skills, and skills that will lead to generating more money in your life. Entrypoint philosophy will help you find a partner with whom you can effectively start a family, shape your views, and influence those around you. So I just recorded the previous 3 sessions, and I gotta tell you, it took me a lot of time and energy, so I will not record the 40-minute session. But if you have any questions, and I assume you might have a lot of questions, then feel free to contact me on my email or WhatsApp. The contacts are in the description to this video. Also, I would like to apologize for the quality. I could do much better quality, but it would take up so much time that I decided to do it in the Entrypoint way, which is just do enough to get the point across, because I don't think that this message is about flashing lights and cool graphics, but it's about the depth of the meaning of the message. So again, feel free to contact me, and let's together join Entrypoint Academy and apply Entrypoint philosophy in the future segments. The next one will be the second segment, which is health, and in that segment I will show you how to apply Entrypoint philosophy to your health.